Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet Voice You Know With the News You Trust studio, sponsored by the Family Forest Carbon Program, where we help family forest owners get paid to improve the health of their woods. Well, the recent USDA statistic making the rounds suggests that only 13% of U.S. farm programs purchase crop insurance. This figure is being cited by critics of crop insurance, particularly those interested in highlighting perceived weakness in coverage for specialty crops. But this interpretation misses a critical point. The USDA's definition of a farm is outdated and overly broad. According to USDA's Economic Research Service, a farm is defined as any place from which $1,000 or more of agricultural products were produced and sold, or normally would have been sold during the year. This definition hasn't changed at all since the 1970s to account for radical changes in agriculture, technology, or even inflation, and it's not much different than the $500 sales threshold used by the USDA in 1870. In fact, USDA's current definition includes properties with no actual production, such as hobby farms, gardens, timber lots, or even old farms converted into rural residents. USDA itself acknowledges that more than 25% of farms have no sales in a typical year, and at least another 30% have positive sales of less than $10,000. This means more than half of the operations categorized as farms under this definition have minimal or no market activity and may not grow crops at all, making it misleading to include these entities when evaluating crop insurance participation. Today's weather brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
Warm and dry to start the week here in Ohio, but rain is coming. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at that Ohio Ag Weather Update. Here's what's going on. Full south flow here through the rest of today and tomorrow. That's going to bump temperatures up. Our first above normal stretch of weather in a little while here, and it's all ahead of our next frontal boundary that's going to be trying to push in on Wednesday. Now, I don't think much happens in Ohio Wednesday with the exception of northwestern parts of the state, but then overnight Wednesday night into Thursday, that's where we see a significant batch of moisture trying to come up from the southwest. So Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, and perhaps even into Friday, we see some scattered showers lingering over southern Ohio. I'm going to put in anywhere from 1/4 to 1.5 inches of rain with nearly 100% coverage. We dry down for the weekend. Saturday the 7th, Sunday the 8th, turn out partly to mostly sunny. And then we have another hit and miss batch of scattered shower action that wants to come in to start the week of the 9th, Sunday night into Monday the 9th. Right now looking at a few hundreds to maybe half an inch coverage, around 60% there. The rest of the week of the 9th seems a little unsettled. I think we're fully dry for Tuesday and going into Wednesday, but then we see a Wednesday afternoon, Thursday frontal boundary passage, which can bring rain back. Dry for a couple of days before moisture tries to return for the weekend of the 14th and 15th. So a definite more active weather pattern. That means our driest opportunities are probably here the next couple of days. I'm meteorologist Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Let's get our first look at how the Ohio State Fair will operate this year. Let's check in with the American Dairy Association Mideast. Joining me at American Dairy Association Mideast is Jenny Crabtree, Senior Vice President of Communications. And Jenny, I always try to get you at this time of year to tell me what's the butter sculpture going to be, but let's back up. Lots of things going on at fairgrounds. Will there be a butter sculpture this year?
There absolutely will be a butter sculpture this year. The fair, a lot of exciting things taking place, but I can let everyone know that the beloved butter cow display will be there.
There will be some other modifications because of things going on in and around the grounds, and sometimes it's even about companies. What can we find as our experience this year?
You'll have to pardon our dust because we will be under construction in our building. However, we still will have dairy foods for fairgoers to love, and of course, you'll be able to see the butter cow display as always.
And there is even talk that there may be too much going on because you won't have water, or maybe don't know that we'll have prepackaged ice cream, which may speed up the line a little. And will there be more flavors, or it's still up for grabs?
We'll have about 5 flavors, okay. So we'll still have some tried and true favorites as well as some fun flavors. Our cheese sandwiches that everyone loves will also be available, as well milk and water will be available.
This may be before your time. Any chance you're bringing back the beloved scales that used to sit in there?
Oh, no.
You'd be surprised how many adults will say, how many years have the scales been going? And I'm like, I don't know. But Bart used to weigh himself in every year at the fair and then see how many chocolate shakes he could eat.
I'm not sure a couple bowls of ice cream is the best thing with a scale, but it is fantastic during the fair to have tradition, and we're proud to be a part of it.
Will you still have the champion cheeses in display?
We'll have video screens that'll be playing that will highlight the champion cheese as we have had the past couple of years, so people still will be able to come in. We'll have displays that'll share, where those cheesemakers are across the state. Lots of great facts and figures to share during the fair through some of the signage that's in the building.
Jenny, thanks for the update. If any of this changes, let us know, and we'll tell everybody when and where to be at the Dairy Products Building at the Ohio State Fair.
Sounds great. See you there.
Just over a year ago, Tyson Foods said it was closing its Perry, Iowa pork processing plant. JBS USA has announced it will build a state-of-the-art sausage production facility in the same town. The $135 million facility is expected to create 500 total direct jobs and an estimated 250 local construction jobs. That according to JBS USA news release. Construction next to Perry's Industrial Park on the city's southeast side is expected to start in late 25, when operations slotted for late 26. The new facility plans to produce 130 million pounds of sausage, processing 500,000 sows each year, the release stated. The facility is expected to begin with one shift of 250 people, with plans to double the workforce and eventually operate two shifts. Perry represents everything we value in a community: hard work, strong producer roots, and people who understand the importance of feeding America, said CEO of JBS USA, Wesley Batista Filho. We plan to be a long-term partner for Perry, and if approved by the community, the facility will help foster job creation and economic stability in the region. The city's mayor, Dirk Kavanaugh, welcomed the JBS announcement and said this is a potential game changer for Perry. JBS USA's intentions to invest here reflects the resilience and promise of our community. This facility will not only create good-paying jobs, but also provide long-term benefits for our schools, infrastructure, and local businesses. Iowa Pork Producers Association President Aaron Jurgensen, who is also a hog farmer from Carroll, said he's excited to see continued investment in Iowa's pork industry. Iowa is the top producing state in the country. JBS USA currently has pork facilities in Ottumwa and Marshalltown, Iowa. Tyson still has facilities in Storm Lake, Waterloo, and Columbus Junction, Iowa. Back with more after this.
Soybeans are making waves in aquaculture. As a top protein source for fish farming, soy meal is essential for producing sustainable farm-raised fish. With fish farming as the fastest growing food sector, soybeans meet the demand for eco-friendly, nutritious options. From soybean fields to fish farms, soybeans power the farms that feed families. Brought to you by the Ohio soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Whether you're in the fields or on the farm, creating a safer work environment has never been easier. BWC's safety consulting services are included with your policy premiums and offer training and education for everyone in your farming operation. It's always the right time to make safety a priority. Visit bwc.ohio.gov or call 1-800-644-6292. The Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation, here to help you work safely.
Hope you'll join us on Tuesday, powered by Soy Biodiesel. We'll be heading over to just outside of Delaware to the Office of Ohio Corn and Wheat for their latest update. Congressman Troy Balderson announced the introduction of the Reliable Power Act last week, legislation designed to protect America's electric grid by ensuring the federal agencies consider the impact of their regulations on grid reliability before finalizing new rules. Representative Ray Weber of Texas and Julie Federkak of North Dakota joined as original co-sponsors. Balderson unveiled the bill at an energy roundtable in Lancaster, Ohio, where he led a discussion on Ohio's growing power needs, the challenges facing the electric grid, and his work as chairman of the House Energy Action Team. The roundtable included a panel of energy experts and industry leaders from across the Buckeye State. The Reliable Power Act builds on the groundwork laid by GRID Act introduction in the previous Congress by former Congressman Jeff Duncan, and clarifying responsibilities, streamlining agency coordination, and reinforcing the Federal Regulatory Commission's central role in upholding electric reliability. Oil futures fell Friday morning on reports that OPEC is considering an output hike in July, exceeding the widely anticipated and largely priced in 411,000 barrels per day. Prices were heading for weekly declines prior to the news. The New York MEX traded on July delivery down 58 cents to trade at nearly $60.36 per barrel. The ICE Brent for July delivery fell 35 cents that is, for a barrel at $63.80. The U.S. dollar index strengthened by 0.101, bringing it to 99.310. Reuters on Friday reported OPEC and its allies may be discussing ramping up output in July beyond the 411,000 barrels per day agreed upon for both May and June at their Saturday meeting. The hike is part of the planned rollback for some 2.2 million barrels per day of voluntary adjustments implemented by 8 member countries, in addition to the group's production curtailment under the Declaration of Cooperation. OPEC's shift in strategy from defending price to regaining market share has exacerbated global oil woes in the light of lackluster demand growth. The historic gap between production targets and actual output, however, suggests the effect of the global supply-demand balance may be less severe than anticipated. Today's market analysis is brought to you by the Louis Dreyfus Company, excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. For marketing information on your beans to LDC, call 574-566-2113. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets got started in overnight trade with a relatively stagnant outlook overall, but there were plenty of headlines to be worked through over the weekend. It was a relatively quiet open to the ag markets, but White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett said on Sunday that a conversation between President Trump and Chinese President Xi could happen as soon as this week to discuss trade. Now, no date was thrown out, and it was confirmed at all. The two leaders previously agreed to a 90-day truce during talks back in Geneva, but tensions have since flared, Trump accusing China of violating the preliminary agreement. Hassett emphasized that both sides remain willing to talk. Daily negotiations are continuing between the U.S. and Chinese trade teams, but other officials are expressing frustration. Commerce Secretary Lutnick accusing China of slow-rolling a deal. Treasury Secretary Bessent acknowledging talks are currently a bit stalled. A direct Trump-Xi call could mark a critical step in efforts to revive momentum. Now, also over the weekend, we heard from a number of top economic advisors stating that the tariffs are not going away despite court rulings that have deemed them unlawful under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. So that story is not going to go away either. Another story that was interesting over the weekend, there was a major Ukrainian drone swarm operation that struck deep inside Russian territory yesterday, targeting a number of multiple military air bases, destroying around 40 military aircraft. That means the tensions are not going away between Russia and Ukraine. The market seems relatively bored with that, but it's still a headline. OPEC has agreed to raise oil production by 411,000 barrels per day in July, its third consecutive monthly hike, despite resistance from members like Russia. We're seeing whether that has any impact on crude markets here as we move through the day today. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Today's market's brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Overnight at the open, July corn up 1/4 cent at 4.44 1/4 cents. December down 1/4 cent at 4.38 1/4. The July beans are down 3 1/2 at 10.38 1/4 cent. November down 3 1/4 at 10.23 1/2. The July wheat is up 2 1/2 at 5.36 1/2. Carried out to September, you're up 2 3/4 at $5.51. On Friday, June cattle were down 5 cents at 215.47. August down 72 at 209.35. June lean hogs, $101.32, up $1.30. July up $1.95 at $104.92. September feeder cattle down $1.15 at $297.70. Thanks for joining us. This is the Ohio AgNet.